it travels 30 feet, curves through the air, it hits my sunglasses, and it goes down my shirt. And I ended up with second and third degree burns on my chest and my stomach. And suddenly I didn't like myself, and I didn't know what my healing time was going to be or what I would look like, and having to kind of accept that this is just where I was. And nothing sounded more terrifying than being on stage in a bikini and having someone judge me based upon my appearance. So that was when the decision was made that I would enter a beauty pageant.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 45 of the Andrew Deitch podcast. What's going on? How's it going? 45. It's a big number. It's a lot. It's a lot of episodes. Still feels weird. 45. But hey, if this is your first time joining me here, I'm super pumped that you're here. My passion behind this podcast is burning hotter than ever, and the fact that there are like thousands of people joining me every day makes me super happy, because I am over here getting to have real conversations with the coolest and most fascinating people I know. People that do awesome stuff, people that go against the grain, people who are polarizing. And that means that you get to be a fly on the wall and enjoy those conversations with me. And of course, today is no different. I have a real treat for you guys on this one, let me tell you. The most common question I get about this podcast is how I happen to meet and get such cool guests. And normally it's a pretty similar answer, but today it's actually a little different. Let me tell you a little story. And I'm all about honesty and transparency here. I'm going to be straight up with you guys. No sense in lying, putting it all out on the table. I met today's guest on an app that is designed for meeting people, okay? And I know what you're probably... Nope, not that app. No, I'm just messing with you guys. Seriously, we met on this app called Shaper, and it's an app, it's pretty interesting. I've mentioned it on the podcast before, but it's designed to actually help you network with people on a professional level. This podcast is not sponsored by Shaper, but it probably should be, because it's actually a really cool app. But it's designed pretty much exactly like Tinder. Like literally it's the exact same thing. You swipe right on people you want to meet. You swipe left to the people you don't want to meet. If you both swipe right on each other, it connects you and you can start chatting. It's pretty neat. But so I joined Shaper a while ago to find more cool people, right? Hopefully find some potential podcast guests. So I'm swiping, and I come across this young lady named Hilary Billings. And she is a very attractive woman. I mean, basically, in the beginning on this app, all you see is a picture and like their job description. But this is an audio thing, right? So it's not really what I'm looking for in a podcast guest. You can't see us, so being an attractive individual doesn't necessarily help in the podcast realm. But hey, I started checking out her profile, and what I found in her profile was everything I want to be. I want to have, rather, in a podcast guest. And so, of course, I swipe right and we matched. And long story short, Hilary was going to be in Atlanta, and we figured out a time to record, and here we are. So, like I said, Hilary is like the epitome of what I love in a podcast guest. She does all kinds of stuff. She does camera hosting, red carpets, behind-the-scenes interviews kind of stuff. She's a contributing writer for a handful of really big publications. She is former Miss Nevada. She used to be a full-time nomadic traveler, blogging about her experience along the way. She has visited tons of really amazing and exotic places, and no lie, I think Hilary has had some of the most fascinating and inspiring stories that I have had on my podcast. And this was definitely one for the books, but I'm going to shut up now and just let Hilary tell you all about it herself. So without any further ado, please welcome my new friend, Hilary Billings. All right, just like that, we're live.
We're live.
Yes. It's always weird saying live, though, because we're not really live. It's just living in this thing.
It's live to us.
It is live to us, and it's live to the person who's listening, so...
Absolutely.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
But it's weird because also with the clip-on mics, you tend to forget that there's anybody listening, which is kind of the point.
It's just you and me, kid.
Exactly. Well, I'm here with Hilary Billings. Am I saying it right?
You are saying it correctly.
Okay, I feel like
it's hard to mess it up.
Yeah, my last name is way harder.
I'm not even gonna try.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, so we're here at the W, downtown Atlanta. Pretty cool stuff. It's a really cool hotel.
It is. It's a really nice one.
And I didn't even ask you because I was just going to ask you on the podcast anyways, but why are you in Atlanta?
I'm here taking meetings.
Cool.
And, hustling out the work. You know how that goes.
Important people, important folks.
All the important things. Hopefully I'll have more to tell you soon.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Well, we'll definitely stay tuned for that. But you've listened to a couple of the podcasts so far, so you kind of know, like some of the podcasts I really want to focus on, like, the person's like story and like how they got to where they are, and some of them it's like maybe they have a current project they're working on that they really want to like showcase or whatever, so I kind of try to go either way with that, but I feel like it's probably a little bit of both with you because it seems like you have a really interesting like story, and I've read some of your blog and your website and stuff like that, and it's like really, really cool stuff that I've been reading. So like
thank you.
Just kind of first of all, let people know like who you are and what you do right now, and then let's go back.
Let's go back in time. Great. Well, my name's Hilary Billings. I do on-camera hosting, red carpets, behind the scenes. Let's try that in English. Behind the scenes interviews. And I also write. I'm a contributing writer for numerous publications. I have a blog, which I recently brought out of a dormant state, and now it's in a resurgence, which is really exciting. I do a lot of things, wear many hats, and I think when you're in this industry, you kind of have to when you're in media. So that's what I'm doing right now. Backtracking a couple of years, I'm previously in Miss Nevada, 2013. Before that, I was a world traveler. I lived nomadically around the world, writing about it on this travel blog, never expecting it to turn into anything. And then that continued to grow and propel my writing career forward, which then has led us here to these couches.
It has indeed.
Going back even further, we're taking it way back.
Yeah. So like, where were you born? All that kind of boring stuff, but cool stuff.
I was born in Southern California. My parents,
cool.
My parents were actually in production, and then my father was working with Kirk Kerkorian at the time as a creative director for the rebuild of MGM on its new location where it's located now, which at the time it was the largest hotel in the world, and they built it out with a Wizard of Oz theme, and so he was one of the creative directors on that. And because we were spending so much time, or he was spending so much time traveling back and forth, we ended up making the move. At that point, we were in Northern California, moved to Las Vegas. So I grew up in Las Vegas.
That's a very interesting world to grow up in.
Yeah. I mean,
you were in I'm assuming you're in the suburbs though. Like obviously you weren't living on the Strip.
No, I lived about 5 minutes from the Strip, and this is considered old Vegas with really beautiful trees and green grass, and an area called Scotch 80s, which is just known for its 1950s early Vegas homes. I will say this, because when I travel, I get that question, like, what's it like to grow up in Vegas? And everyone thinks it must be really different. But, like there's schools, we've got after school activities. I was in basketball, I played volleyball, went after cheer, I was horseback riding and doing all these extracurricular things and academics that you would normally assume. And then, doing my homework on Siegfried and Roy's stage, and then hanging out with showgirls. So I just thought that was normal,
Yeah, that's funny. I definitely feel like growing up like in Las Vegas, it's almost like living in Arizona or something, but you still have that. You have all the Vegas stuff that comes with it. It's just kind of like in the background.
Yeah, absolutely. I did my 3rd grade science project on lions, and that was my introduction to lion training, which I would come back to work as a consultant for that sanctuary many years later.
Wow.
I mean, it's just a random place where great things can happen, and I think the best part about being in a town that's so entertainment focused is that you get the best chefs, you get the best entertainers, you get the best nightlife, you get all of these amazing experiences that are coming through town, and the ability to experience that if you want to, which is really great.
That's actually that's super fascinating, because also there's a lot of people that just grow up in the middle of nowhere kind of stuff.
Sure.
And they don't have access to a cool place. Like I grew up in the suburbs of Atlanta, so like Atlanta's a pretty like up and coming city.
Yeah.
Like lots of cool stuff.
You got
happening.
a lot going on.
Yeah, for sure. But I didn't ever like look at Atlanta that way when I was younger. I always like saw New York, Chicago, Miami,
Sure.
Los Angeles, all that kind of stuff, Las Vegas. as like the big cities, and Atlanta's just like a side city. Like no one wants to come and visit Atlanta. But Atlanta's like on the rise for sure, and I definitely appreciate living here now.
You know, I feel like wherever you grow up, you almost take it for granted until you have a little bit more life perspective. I mean, I definitely took advantage of it and took it for granted when I was growing up there. I didn't know what really existed beyond. I wasn't 21, so I wasn't allowed to do most things there. Like that was just what you were told growing up. Like when you're walking through a casino and you're a child, you have to stay between certain lines and away from the craps tables and away from the slot machines, or else you'll get yelled at by not only your parents, but also security. Yep. So like there's just certain rules and regulations that you're like, okay, well, this town's no fun until I reach a certain age. And, you know, what I really loved about Vegas was when I started traveling and seeing just what a hub it was for international travel as well as for tourists, and the kinds of people and diversity that comes there, as well as, you know, the avenues it provided me to go elsewhere. You don't know those things until you get older. That's
very, very true. That's a good perspective, because a lot of people, number one, they don't take advantage of those things anyways, so they never get to know that. But that is very interesting that you're right, like so many people visit there, so you get to experience like lots of different types of people.
Absolutely.
And I definitely can relate to being in Vegas when you're underage, because actually the first time I went to Las Vegas, it was for a conference and I wasn't 21 yet, and it sucked.
There's plenty to do, but you have to look a little bit harder, that's for sure. You have to get creative. For sure.
Mainly it was just like the fun of just walking down the strip and walking through all the casinos and seeing all the crazy stuff, because also I didn't have extra cash to really gamble with and all that kind of stuff anyways.
There's so many great free attractions, and I have to say that's one of the things that I really loved about that city, is that regardless of your budget, there was something cool you could go see and do.
That's very true. There is a lot of low budget stuff there that you don't think about.
Yeah.
Because all you see when you think of Las Vegas is all the glitzy stuff. But to kind of move on a little bit, I did want to ask you one thing. If someone was going to Las Vegas, what's like the number one thing you have to do? Because you're like an expert, you live there. Okay, well, what kind of person am I dealing with? Like, that's very important. Do they like to shop? Do they like to eat? Do they like adventures? Do they like gambling? What's their concerts? For the person,
what's their experience?
I would say, let's say for the non-typical person, because most people obviously are going to go there to like gamble and drink and go to parties and stuff. But if you're trying to do something a little bit more off the beaten path, but still like awesome, or maybe just like kind of a hidden gem of Las Vegas or something like that you would suggest?
Well, there's so many. It's just hard for me to pick. If you like nature, you know, you can take a Mavericks helicopter ride to the Grand Canyon, which is just a few hours away. You can go rock climbing out in Red Rock. We have one of the top 5 rock climbing destinations. You can go out and visit the Lion Habitat Ranch, which is a sanctuary that I consulted at, and play with lions and get the chance to hand feed lions and meet cubs and see how they take care of the animals, which is pretty cool. You can go do a flying acrobatics yoga class in an art factory downtown where there's just crazy art from local artists all over the place. While you're hanging upside down on someone's feet, you can do that if you want.
That sounds awesome.
There's plenty of great local bars and local cuisine for sure. But I'm definitely partial to some of the eats on the strip, so.
Yeah, for sure. That's super cool. I actually was in Las Vegas like in October, and we went to the Grand Canyon, so that was super awesome.
Yeah. It's worthwhile.
I almost even forgot about that was part of Las Vegas, because it was like a California Las Vegas trip that we did.
Yeah.
And so like almost the trip to the Grand Canyon almost seemed like separate from the Las Vegas part, because it's just like so different.
It is a schlep for sure to head out there. I mean, Hoover Dam is only about an hour away too, which is an amazing when you think about the amount of technology and the workforce and what people were doing out there. And in that era, it's so incredible looking back. Of course, you know, driving by it when you're 10, you're just like, yeah, whatever. They keep water on the side and it comes out the side. But then when you really think about it and you get the chance to experience just the amount of labor and creativity that had to go into something, that kind of construct, it's insane.
Yeah.
So those would be my recommendations for the atypical, unusual Vegas traveler that's looking for something different. But if you want more tips, feel free to hit me up on any of the socials, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and I'll give you more information.
There we go.
Absolutely. Happy to do it.
Trip planner.
That's right. My second career is in trip consulting. But kind of going back to the story, so growing up in Vegas, my intention was never to stay there. You know, I figured I would go elsewhere for college and I would have this great experience of growing up yonder.
Yeah. Did you want, like, what was your ideal career? Like, your dad was in creative stuff. Like, what did you want to do?
Yeah, you know, my dad was in production, television and film and casting directing, and my mother was a model for Bob Mackie, and I was determined to be normal. So, yeah. Spoiler alert, didn't happen. I ended up getting my degree in psychology, so I went to UNLV on a full academic ride because I couldn't afford to go to college elsewhere, and that was, you know, I graduated with a 3.98 GPA. I had 1 A- in my entire college career. It still bugs me to this day, by the way.
Man.
1 A-, ironically in world history, as it were. But
world history is a hard subject, though.
it's a lot to cover.
Yeah, literally.
It's literally the whole world worth of history, you know.
Yeah.
Like the final exam, you're like, anything could be on this. I have no idea.
Literally anything that has ever happened could be on this test right now.
And I, you know, I had a hard teacher. Whatever, no excuses. But I was really primed, you know, because of all the work that I'd done in labs, and you know, I'm kind of an overachiever, if we haven't already established that, and my attitude and type A personality and how I like to go about life. So I really thought that getting into graduate school was a no-brainer, and it turns out I was wrong. Like, recession hit, you know, grant funding got cut across the board, and I didn't get in anywhere. So it was really that moment was the first of me learning that I transform and I pivot best when I'm in the flame. So I'm really like forged from fire. And from that moment, I decided to go to Nicaragua and start a blog, which just seemed totally normal at the time with the next steps.
Why Nicaragua?
So I was following this blog, ironically, of a pro surfer. Her name is Holly Beck, and she ran these women's surf retreats out of the coast of northern Nicaragua. And I was actually interviewing, I think I was in Albany in February of that year, and you know, there's like 5 feet of snow on the ground. I'm miserable. I'm so stressed out. I'm like poring over these research papers, trying to make this work and impress people and make them think like, I am your choice. I am the one person out of these, you know, 700 candidates that you've been interviewing. Like, I am the person that you're going to get. And I was researching her blog and going through these videos. I'm like, man, this looks like so much fun. And there's yoga and horseback riding, and you learn how to surf, and you connect with these cool chicks from around the world. You go volcano boarding down the world's most active cinder cone volcano. And I had just enough money left in my bank account to purchase and make the down payment to go on the trip. So I thought this was going to be my celebration of myself and my last hurrah before I spent the next 7 to 10 years getting a PhD in clinical psychology. Turns out it was kind of my life is over, I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm hiding from the world trip, which ended up being incredibly transformative in itself.
Totally.
So yeah, that was the first step. That's
so awesome. So what did your parents say when you're like, I'm going to Nicaragua?
I mean, they've had little say in my life for a long time as far as my decisions, I'd say. And so I think they were as supportive as they could be. I think given the environment, and it was a very safe environment to take that first step of going outside the country, they were fine. I mean, they were a little reticent for sure. I just remember that my dad was sending me, what was it? It was either shark attacks, like the number of shark attacks that had been in the area, or earthquake warnings, or hurricanes. It was something that was just related to, hey, like, I know you're really excited to go here, but just so you know, like, here's some more information. Yeah. And I'm like, well, I'm going, so great. If I have to, you know, out surf a hurricane, this is going to be awesome. So
sounds like an adventure.
It was, you know, and I'm really grateful for it. It was the first time, probably in my adult academic career, where I wasn't in direct competition with any of the women that I was surrounded by. And the cool thing about that is I was the youngest on the trip, and you had CEOs from large companies and women that own their own business, and skaters and photographers and other pro surfers, and just from all around the world. And it was really interesting to see how that dynamic worked. And like, the only thing that we had in common for the most part was that we all were here to have adventure and to experience something new and different in this cool environment together. And when you're in that type of travel environment where you're so isolated and all you have that's familiar are these people that have, in theory, gone through similar things as you, like you really tightly bond with them in a short amount of time. And I also realized that I didn't have to be like this CEO. I didn't have to be like this business owner. I didn't have to be like this photographer, because when our powers unite, like Captain Planet, you know, like you're fire, I'm wind, you're water, spirit. Yeah, exactly. And then we create this super chasm of awesomeness together. And that was the first time in a long time that I'd had that realization that I don't have to be like you. And that was really powerful and an empowering moment to understand that about my future trajectory.
Yeah, that's super fascinating, because I totally agree. Because when you're traveling, especially, you're not around people that have any expectations of who you should be, because they don't know you. Right. So you could be anybody at that moment.
Anybody you want.
Yeah. And so that's when you really truly figure out who you actually even are. Because for a lot of times for people, when they travel to someplace new where they don't know anybody and they're not around anybody that has known them previously, it's the first time they get to actually be themselves and try to, I don't know, experience life without any expectations.
Yeah, I had gone to Austria. I think that might have been my first solo female trip, was to Salzburg, which is a unique choice because, I mean, I was there for a conference I was presenting, but not speaking the language and not having any idea where I was or what was happening. It was really unique to be by yourself in such a foreign environment where you're really illiterate, right, as well as unable to speak the language, and just have to decide, like, well, what are you going to do today? You know, what would you like for breakfast? And even those small decisions of, okay, well, I think I'm going to go down this little cafe down the street and try to finagle with a game of charades some eggs. And just making those decisions and trusting yourself, that was another great way of learning how to empower yourself through travel, of just trusting that you know what you need and that you will find a way to get it. And if you don't, you will find someone that can help you figure it out. And that, I think that's really a secret of life, is that we stress out so much about, well, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And at the end of the day, if we just take a step back and intentionally look at, well, what is it that you really want or want to do, away from all of this noise that's around us of what others think we should do or who we should be or what Facebook or social media says that we need to be doing, it becomes very clear very quickly.
Definitely.
You know, today you feel like sleeping in. Tomorrow you're going to go play charades and get some eggs. Like,
I love it.
It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, like my biggest realization, especially when I took my first like solo trip, was that everything was an adventure. Like even the smallest thing, like you said, going to just try to figure out how to go get some eggs. Like, and the idea of returning back to America where going and getting eggs was so easy to me and mundane was just like, ugh, I want to like learn new stuff. And yeah, it is crazy how when you're just thrown into that environment where you're essentially illiterate, like you said, you have to figure it out.
There's two great things about what you were just saying there, and the first one is just like the discovery of the little joys of life, right? We so easily forget that all these little moments where we get to make these decisions can be adventures, and there's something really special about finding that through travel again. I mean, anywhere really, wherever you go, and every day we have that option. For most of us, we don't do that because going and getting toothpaste is not something that normally excites a person, but it can be when it's new and fresh and exciting. And so I think that's one way of totally keeping not only you excited about life, but your memory engaged, of like, remember that time I couldn't find toothpaste? And now you have this cool story and this cool memory that you've created just from something that would have been so mundane looking back on it. It's
almost like being a kid again, because I think adults tend to look at kids and be like, I wish I had as much energy as that kid. Or I wish I was excited about life as that kid. But it's only because the kid is experiencing so many things for the first time. Right. And then once you just get caught up in everything, like everything is so predictable and boring, you know, once you're thrown into this new environment, going to the store is like a crazy adventure, just like for a little kid. Like, oh, look at this new cereal. I've never seen this before.
There's no expectation.
Yeah.
Right? My dad, because, you know, he's in production, he would film everything that we did growing up. So much so that my older sister, I think he took the camera away from his face at one point, and she was freaked out because she was so used to seeing him just with the camera that she didn't recognize who he was without the camera next to him.
Like when she was an infant?
Yeah. Because anyway, so...
That's so funny.
We went to Disneyland for my birthday, and I only know this because there's video footage of it sitting somewhere on a VHS tape. And we're walking through the parking lot, and my dad asked me, like, well, what do you think of Disneyland? I'm like, it's amazing, because to me, it's the best thing ever. Everyone talks about going to Disneyland, and they're just laughing because we're in a parking lot. And there was a discussion that happened, like, well, do we actually go to the park, or do we just like walk around the parking lot a few times and then take her home, and, you know, we can sell her that this was the experience, you know? But that goes
so true.
To just like make a point of when you have no expectations of what you're experiencing. And, you know, researchers say that if you do new things in your life, you're actually going to expand the amount of time that your memory is able to recall your years. So, you know, as we get older, they say that, you know, oh yeah, the years pass by more quickly. And part of that has to do with repetition. You know, after you have been driving for so long, when you first learned how to drive, you were constantly checking your mirrors, and you were like, okay, I got to turn the key this way, and then I got to do this, and then I got to look behind me, and I got to make sure my seatbelt's on. And now, like, you probably don't even remember what your drive was like getting here tonight.
I do remember because it was slightly treacherous. It was rainy, and it was raining really hard. And so I was in that mode,
apocalyptic.
I was kind of in that mode because I'm like, oh crap, is there a guy behind me? If I start hydroplaning, am I going to hit somebody? Like, I was kind of freaking out a little bit. Because for a little bit it got like pretty intense. I'm like, geez.
Yeah, no, man, it's some post-apocalyptic rains happening here. But to that point, you know, you're going to have that memory now. Like, oh yeah, I remember that drive there, because it was so different and out of the ordinary. And your brain, you know, once it learns that something's safe, it kind of puts it away. Like, I don't need to remember this anymore. This is not a threat to me. And so anyway, I try to incorporate new things into my daily life as a way to help kind of prolong the years in my own, and trick my brain into thinking I'm having more life than I actually am.
That's good though. I feel like I've been kind of doing that, I guess, subconsciously, because I'm trying to be... Have you ever seen the movie Yes Man? Like, where the guy just says yes to everything?
Yes.
I'm kind of trying to be like that these days, because, like, when I came back to America, like, from my last trip, I was like, ugh, I'm going to be, like, so bored doing all my normal stuff. But then I was like, no, I can, like, do fun stuff here. Yeah. And I just need, like, when people invite me to do something cool, I need to, like, make it a priority to try to do that thing. Even though I know it's going to cost money, or I know it's going to, like, it's going to be a new experience, I need to, like, do it. Because if I was overseas and someone presented me with a cool opportunity, I'd be like, yeah, let's do it. Like, let's go on this adventure. But, like, I'm here, I'm like, I probably should save, or, like, I probably need to, like, go home and do this or whatever. And obviously you can't say yes to every situation, but I've been trying to do that as well, because I think you're right. Like, the more weird little new things that you do, you can enjoy life more, and you can remember the experiences a lot more, because life doesn't get so boring.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely.
That's super cool. So you went to Nicaragua, did the surfing thing.
I did the surfing thing.
How was surfing? Like, had you ever surfed before?
I had. I'd done a couple of, like, random lessons in California growing up.
That makes sense.
But, I mean, I lived in a desert, so I'm not good at it. Didn't practice a whole lot in Las Vegas.
But you knew the concept.
I knew the concept. And it was great. I mean, the whole concept of surfing, it can get pretty existential here if we wanted to. But the great thing about it, and what I learned in that process, you know, because you learn in whitewash, like you learn in the wave sets as they're coming in, and you learn how to, first you sit on the board, and then like you lay on the board, and then, you know, you ride the waves on your knees, and then you ride them maybe just like crouched down with your hands on the board, and then you try to like actually stand up all the way, and it's these little baby step increments. But while you're learning just these basics of how to balance, you're just getting thrashed with all these wave sets coming in, and especially where we were, they could get pretty strong as the tide rose. And so you're just constantly getting pummeled with this water, which is what makes the whole process really exhausting. In a typical surfing scenario, you'd paddle out the back and get around all of the whitewash and then ride a full wave in, kind of eliminating all of that struggle. But there's something really cool about learning how to deal with that struggle and just kind of surrendering versus fighting it. Because the more you fight within the waves, the more exhausted you're going to get. and it's going to limit the amount of time that you can be in the water. And there was a couple times where I went under and like you just get caught in the set, so every time you go up to breathe, another wave comes at you and you just get pushed right back down. But it was a really great lesson in sometimes you just have to roll with it and know that you're going to be fine, and just staying in this calm and serene state of mind. But aside from the whole surfing aspect, the thing that I pulled out of that trip, which unbeknownst to me at the time, set me up for the rest of probably the next 2 years to come, was meeting my cabana mate. And her name was Tale, which means precious in Fijian, and she's Fijian. She had just come from Honduras, and she had been traveling for about 6 months. So we were all, staying in these tiny little cabanas together, and she's a couple of years older than me. We're the closest in age together. She spoke 5 languages. She was previously living in China, working for this Australian company, or vice versa. It's been a couple of years, so forgive me. I'm a little fuzzy on the details, but she just had such a sense of grounding about her. And I remember one day we were sitting out by the water, and I of course was still in the what am I going to do with my life mentality, and like my life is over, I failed, I didn't get into grad school, and there's nowhere to go from here, this is the end. And she asked me, what is it that you like to do? And I'm like, I really like this. Obviously it's easy to say I love being on a beach in a beautiful location, talking with people. But at the end of the day, I really enjoyed getting to know these women and hearing about their lives and their experiences, and having these conversations and having that enrich my own experience. And she just looks at me and asks me almost a little bit like I'm stupid, like, well, why don't you just do that then? I'm like, that's not a thing. People don't really do. They don't just travel and meet people. It doesn't really happen. So we all leave this trip, and a week later, she was killed in a car accident in Jamaica.
Wow.
It made international headlines. She was traveling with her best friend and her best friend's family. There were 7 people in the car. They were hit head on in the middle of the night, and I think only her friend survived out of everybody. It was so tragic. And I remember we were all sending emails back and forth, and they're like, no, it couldn't be her, and then the news started coming in and confirming that, and we knew this was her last stop before she was going back to Fiji. And again, she had been gone for 6 months, and she had even Skyped with her mom and had this conversation about, well, do I go, do I not go?
To
Jamaica, and she made the decision to go. So, we're all heartbroken. And it was so, I've had a lot of death in my life, but it was very strange to have felt so briefly connected to somebody and then have that immediately go away. And my friends in Vegas didn't quite understand the severity of the loss that I was feeling. So I ended up finding her brother on Facebook, and I sent him photos and, just wrote him a thank you letter, and for sacrificing time with her so that we could get to know her and have her enrich our lives. And then a couple months went by where, I was working and traveling a little bit and meeting up with some of the girls on the coast that were located on the West Coast. And it probably was New Year's. I think I had just quit whatever random job that I had been working to get by. And I got an email back from him, and he said, hey, thank you so much. We really appreciate that. I don't know if Tale told you, we are one of the 3 chiefly tribes of Fiji. And we belong to the Firewalker clan, which for them means being the originators of the practice of walking on hot coals. Tony Robbins learned firewalking from them. Very mysterious, incredible tribe. And he asked me in this email, we'd love to have you come out and to meet you and have you meet the tribe. And in my mind, I was just saying to myself, like, that doesn't happen. That Fiji's for honeymooners. I can't afford that. Like, that's crazy. But I just quit my job. And so I kind of made this deal with myself and the universe. Like, okay, universe, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, I need plane tickets to be at this price. And I looked it up, and they weren't where I needed them to be. And I went to bed, and the next day I woke up, and boom, there it was. They were where I needed in the right price range. So I booked a ticket, and I ended up doing a 2-week layover in Australia, because I had to go through Australia or New Zealand, and I figured, why not?
Heck yeah.
How often am I going to be there?
Yeah.
And that just became, then I went and spent a month with this incredible family. And it was probably almost a year, a little less than a year after she had died, that I was able to go and meet them. And it was incredibly emotional to be there and to meet all of her extended family and to hear more stories about her. And 3 days into my trip there, her father dies.
Oh my gosh.
And I just assumed at that point that, cannibalism was only abolished in Fiji in the 1980s. And, they were very much tribe and a culture based around mysticism and, requiring gifts to all the elders when you first arrive to meet these tribes.
Whoa.
To help ward off all the evil spirits and have all of their ancestors bless you to be there.
Did you have to do that?
Yeah, I did. But I was very concerned once this happened. Like, they're going to think I'm some sort of harbinger of death. I'm going to get sent away. And I remember I was emailing my parents. I'm like, I may not be staying. I don't know. And I was sitting there with her mother, and I had this coffee cup in my head, and my hands were just shaking because I didn't know what to make of what was happening. And she just looked at me and just seemed very calm. And she's like, there must be something about you that's very soothing during times of trauma, and that's why Tally brought you here. So you will assume all of her roles in the funeral for her father. And I became then part of this elaborate 30-day funeral ceremony for her father, which was an incredible experience that I couldn't have asked for, and just such a gift to me. And it was amazing. It was an incredible trip for sure. And even when I got back and I started blogging about it, I had different sociologists and scientists emailing me asking how I got the chance to come and visit this tribe, because they're very secretive and they don't like to, they're very friendly for sure, but very particular.
They're not letting people in.
It's not a tourist trap, that's for sure.
It's real. That's what they do.
This is their life. This is their life. And they'll have guys that will go and perform at the local hotels, and they have the fire dancers will do the same. But yeah, I kind of jokingly would laugh and email them back and say a ghost brought me to the firewalkers, and they didn't really understand the joke, but I thought it was pretty funny. But yeah, that's a good response. That trip just it set me up on this unique journey where I still feel very tied to them and their story. And right almost immediately after I got back, it was the end of June, and then 4th of July happened in Vegas, and I was still acclimating and having a hard time getting back into American culture, which I'm sure you've experienced. It can be tough to reassimilate after being gone for so long.
And you notice so many weird little things too.
Yeah.
About America, you're like, why are we so weird? Why do we do this way or whatever? You're like, just weird little things.
Oh man, it's total side note.
Americans.
Total sidebar. After I went to Colombia, I just was so grateful for toilet seats. Like, you never would think that would be the thing that you just like, I'm so grateful that I have you, but I was. So anyway, back to the 4th of July. One of my friends was having a party. She wanted me to come. I was really on the fence, not wanting to kind of break still this moving meditation I was having about my experience in Fiji. But I went, and I ended up, so the ironic thing about this is that the Firewalkers, not only being a tribe based around being impervious to fire and having the ability to walk on the coals just purely based upon faith, but there's another side to it where all the women in the tribe are blessed with the gift of being able to heal burn wounds and fire, and being able to heal from fire. And so there's these two aspects of their spiritual beliefs, which is really fascinating. And I come back from that, and I'm at this 4th of July party, and a firework malfunctions, and it travels 30 feet, it curves through the air, it hits my sunglasses, and it goes down my shirt, and I ended up with 2nd and 3rd degree burns on my chest and my stomach. And suddenly my whole life changed in that instance as well. So it was really fascinating to have this dichotomy of traveling and being with this tribe that's based all around fire, and then literally being hit with fire and having to recover from that.
Did it explode in your shirt, or was it just the burning ember flew down, or what?
It was a fuse. So it ended up malfunctioning, and it blew up the wrong way and the wrong direction from how they had it set. And the fuse, which was still attached to, I guess, a part of the firework, was what ended up being caught down my shirt. And so all I remember from that was like, and when the firework went off, there was a moment where everyone was looking at each other and didn't know what to do because the fuse went up and nothing happened. And then having it totally just backfire. I knew that I'd been hit in my face, but I couldn't really feel it. And then I just remember being on the ground and shaking out my shirt, like almost instinctively, just trying to get it. And I mean, just random things like, okay, well, do I wear like this bra? Do I wear that bra? And like, what kind of top do I wear? And just having made some choices that ended up protecting me and really saving my life and a lot of my body, I think, at the end of the day, which, you know, you don't think about when you go to a friend's party.
You're not thinking, oh, which shirt should I wear in case a fuse flies down my shirt and burns me?
Yeah. Yeah. You're not like, okay, which is the best body armor while also looking fashionable?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not your daily question. And, you know, and then began...
Unless you work at medieval times or something.
Yes, exactly. That suit of armor goes with everything. But it became a really interesting time in my life where, you know, I'd gotten my degree in psychology, focused on body image, and suddenly I didn't like myself and I didn't know what my healing time was going to be or what I would look like, and having to kind of accept that this is just where I was and having to cancel all my travel plans and kind of feeling like a fraud keeping up my blog and writing about things that I previously experienced in months past because I was in one place dealing with this accident and not wanting to talk about it. So then, you know, come again, New Year's, I'm sitting there and looking at this past year and like, you know, Hilary, you've got to not be a hypocrite. And the thing that I talked most about in my blog, The Nomad Grad, is putting yourself in uncomfortable situations and finding a way to make them comfortable, particularly related to travel for self-growth. But in this case, I sat there and said, okay, what can you do that will be incredibly uncomfortable but could help you move past this as being something that defines you in your life? And nothing sounded more terrifying than being on stage in a bikini and having someone judge me based upon my appearance. So that was when the decision was made that I would enter a beauty pageant.
Wow.
And that was that.
That's crazy. So wait, so you said you had second and third degree burns. So like how long was the recovery time?
I don't want to say I was fully healed. The skin had fully closed up and healed about 6 months. It was about 6 months. It was a good 3 months of not being able to wear clothes comfortably.
I was going to say, because I had a friend who had burns on her back and she had to have like the backs cut out of like all of her shirts because the clothes would stick to it. And there was a lot of, you know, mismatched gauze and just trying to figure out some ways to protect the area. Seatbelts. You know, I was a dancer. I did a lot of social kind of ballroom style dancing, couldn't dance, you know, no contact whatsoever, sleeping. I mean, just random things, again, that you take for granted in your daily life that you don't realize really play a factor. And even, you know, learning things that you learn when you go through these types of things. The chest is the slowest healing part of the body. So my face was healed in about a week, but, you know, and with the chest, the body, you know, doctors don't know what your body's going to do in reaction to a trauma like that, and you could keloid, you could need, you know, grafts, you could need all these things, and we don't know until we get to that point. So it was really up to my body to do the work and for me to kind of embrace it during this change. And there's a lot of ugly things that come with healing, but the cool thing about it is to see how your body is able to heal itself. Yeah, that is really fascinating because that's what the body's designed to do. Send to thrive.
Keep you alive.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. One like weird thing that I was just thinking of when you were talking about burns, have you seen this thing where they're putting fish skin on people's burns now?
No, I haven't.
So like a weird thing about like bandages and gauze and all that stuff, like you have to constantly be changing it and that like rips off all kinds of stuff when you're changing the bandages. And I saw this weird video where they're like starting to put like the fish skin with the scale side like up, not touching the skin obviously. And for whatever reason there's like healing qualities of having like the fish like oils and stuff on your skin, and then you don't have to change them nearly as often because it's like kind of already moisturized or whatever. Really fascinating.
It wouldn't surprise me. I know I was told to put a lot of like vitamin E oil or olive oil, so I would guess that the oils from the skin would be And the fact that it's a little bit porous, I mean, I think anything that's more natural and less synthetic is going to be better for you.
Yeah.
Aloe vera, that was a big one, straight from the plant. Just like slap that sucker over on top of the burns, and that was a big one.
That's convenient, being in a dry climate, having aloe vera. That's awesome. So then you decided to do the bikini thing and do the beauty pageant, and you're like, how long between that recovery time to doing that was it?
So I made that. I entered in January and I competed in May. So it was a couple months of preparing, and lucky for me, I had met now one of my best friends right before I left for Fiji, and we were working on a movie set together, and she was a former Miss Nevada, USA and America, and she ended up offering to coach me through this process, which was amazing. So I probably wouldn't have, I know I wouldn't have succeeded if it hadn't been for her help through that. And even just her, because I was freaking out, man. Like, this is not something, I've never done a beauty pageant before. I consider myself incredibly academic. This was a whole different world that I was not familiar with and really didn't think very highly of until I was in it. And then you're exposed to all of these incredible women again, and you just realize that they're there for these amazing purposes. Like, there was a girl that was competing who had previously been homeless, and she was there with the platform to help the homeless community. We had a girl whose friend and brother had been drug addicts, and so they ended up, her platform was substance abuse and being able to help people through drug addiction. It was just incredible to see the types of women that were going after and using this as a microphone to further their community agendas to help grow and heal their communities through their own experiences, which was
That's interesting.
Very inspiring.
I feel like when most people think of like doing beauty pageants, they're thinking of self-centeredness, kind of in like, oh, look at me. But that's really cool that it was that, because I think most people don't think about that aspect, that you do have a lot of power when if you win, you have this microphone that you can support all types of different causes.
I wouldn't say that there isn't that aspect to it as well. Obviously, there's a lot of glamour, there's a lot of aesthetic involved as well. But what I enjoyed most, or I learned to enjoy most throughout my year as Miss Nevada, was hearing people tell me, you don't look like a Miss Nevada, or you don't look like a beauty queen. And at first when I heard it, I was incredibly off-put by the comment. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, what am I supposed to look like? Because I'm not tan enough, I'm not buxom enough, like what, my hair is not platinum. What is the stereotype that you're thinking of? And the more that I thought about the comment, I'm like, oh, you know what? Every time I hear this is a win, because that means that we're breaking somebody's idea of what this is supposed to look like, because it shouldn't look like anything, really. At the end of the day, if you're able to create these qualifications, we're judged on swimsuit, evening gown, on-stage question, and interview. Half of your score is talking.
There we go.
And so 25% of your score is being on stage in a bikini, and everyone's going to look beautiful in a dress. So at the end of the day, it's really going to come down to who can communicate and who has a plan for their year and who is likable. At least to me, when I judge and when I look back at how results have turned out in years since, I think that is incredibly important, that you have somebody that knows how to speak. And you see that even now in the national pageants, where we're going more towards women that are smart and have diversity, and it's not just one look or one type of person. And I think that's beautiful. The year that I gave up my title, we had triple the number of entries. And we had women that were publicists, we had lawyers, we had women that owned their own businesses. Like, you had this great range and representation of different women of different backgrounds. It was really cool to see them all going after this one thing that they knew was going to be able to help raise them up to the next level.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really, really cool. What was your onstage question?
My onstage question, I will never forget this, was, do you believe that racial profiling is an effective method for stopping terrorism? Why or why not?
Whoa.
That was my onstage question. And
how much time do you have to answer it?
About 30 seconds.
Whoa. So can you give us your 30-second answer? I'm curious.
I can tell you that I did a hair flip to buy myself some time, because I was just like, what is happening? Yeah. And I had kind of primed myself. You do a lot of practice of going through these rapid fire questions before you get to that moment. But the other girls on stage, they essentially changed the model. At the time, we all got different questions. So one of the girls' questions was, who's your favorite first lady and why? Do you think that drug testing athletes should be required in high school? And I just was like, okay, this is going to be a softball.
Yeah.
We're totally good. I'm fine. And so then I get this question and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I've already lost it just by the level of difficulty of the question. So I do this hair flip and I remember having this dialogue in my head, kind of like Sandra Bullock style with like her Gracie Lee Bush moment. And at some point, I'm talking about the fact, well, I'm a travel blogger and a writer, and I've been around the world, and I've seen different cultures of people, and I don't think that stereotypes stick, and stigma isn't what we think it is. However, because when you're in that position, you don't want to alienate your audience. Like, I do understand everybody trying to find some tactic in some way to stop these terrible acts of terrorism from happening. I don't think this is the answer. And at some point I said the words world peace. I don't know how, I don't remember, but I remember thinking to myself, like, are you serious right now? Like, you just pulled the biggest pageant stereotype ever.
It's so funny.
So like I wrapped up my question. I thought I had packaged it together very poorly, and I remember as they moved on to the final girl, I'm like, okay, well, this has been fun, and you really enjoyed the experience, and you got what you wanted out of it. It's been fine. Just like soak in the moment. You're gonna have this memory for the rest of your life that you did this thing. And when I won, I just couldn't believe it. It was pretty incredible. Wow. And then afterwards, the judges came up to me and they told me that they felt that I had the most sincerity. And one of them in particular was like, when you said that you were going to be doing all these things with your year, I believed you. And, I hope you live up to the hype. So I think I did.
That's awesome.
It was a cool moment. And
you're talking about, because when you win, you have a year of holding the crown. So you have to like basically pitch them on what you'll do as Miss Nevada. Yeah,
it depends upon the judges and what they're looking for and how they want to interview you. But that was a lot of the questions, like what's your platform, like what are you going to promote throughout your year, what would you do with your year, what's the first thing you're going to do with your year, how are you going to grow the organization. Essentially you become an ambassador for the organization as well as for your state. And most people don't recognize that pageants are businesses, and so they're owned and run by business organizations, and so you have to be able to handle yourself in a situation that protects the business and promotes the business, as well as then because you have this very elaborate title and this clout of being the state title holder, things that you say may end up on the news in reference to local legislation. So you have to have a background in what's going on in your state and what's going on in the world, because people will ask you. I cannot tell you the number of politically based questions I got throughout my year, current events questions. And people were always kind of surprised when I had answers ready. I don't think they're quite ever expecting that, or they're kind of hoping they'll catch you off guard.
Yeah, because it's the easy thing to do to,
right.
Haha, look at this dumb girl.
Right.
Like, because it's like reinforcing the stereotype of, oh, she's a pretty dumb girl,
right,
or whatever.
Right. Well, and it was fascinating, and I found this when I was a county title holder. I learned through observing how people interacted with me, how the title and just wearing a sash affected how people would approach me or their thoughts about me. And I would love to do an experiment one day where you just take a sash and crown of a state title or Miss USA or something, and you put it on girls in this room and see what happens. Because there were people that would think that I'm a trophy wife, I'm looking to be a trophy wife, I'm looking for status, I just want to marry rich, I have no life ambitions, I'll get Botox in 20 years, like plastic surgery, whatever it is that they think exemplifies that stereotype. And then there were those who thought, okay, she's really important, I must spend time with her, I must get to know her. And then there were those that would think she's the most beautiful woman in the room and the most amazing person, and you're the most beautiful woman in Nevada. And all of these things are untrue, right? None of these things are accurate. So it was fascinating to me that all of just by having just this simple sash, it changed how people would perceive you. And it just goes to show that appearances can matter in situations, but those aren't the kind of people that I'm going to be having long-lasting relationships with. But it is in that moment where you're able to captivate and capture their attention. So what are you going to say, and what are you going to do, and how are you going to make a difference based upon that little time that you have with that person for them to remember you by?
That's very interesting. The human brain is like so susceptible to like, not advice, but it's so susceptible to suggestion.
Yeah.
Like, because you have that sash on.
Yeah.
The brain is thinking, oh, well, lots and lots of people have all agreed upon this consensus that she is the one.
Absolutely.
And so, like, even though there may be another girl that's more attractive or whatever, by whatever kind of standards, they're going to gravitate towards you because you have the sash and the crown and all that.
Exactly. You know, and we have a saying in the pageant world, like, different day, different judges, different results. You know, and all you need is for someone, you could look like the ex of someone that's on the panel and they immediately dislike you, or you could look like a friend of theirs that they're having a fight with, or maybe you look like the person that they've always wanted to be, and so they're gonna like love you, or you remind them of, you know, their niece or their daughter, and they want you to succeed, or, you know, you ride horses, they love horses, you know, whatever it is, you've had this life experience, they love that life experience, or they're really looking for a particular look, or they have been told by the director that they want someone with a certain back. Like, you just never know what the judges are basing their votes off of, and who you're competing against, and how you're feeling that day. Like, that has a lot to do with it as well. The interesting thing that I love most about this experience is that years later, one, you know, there's a collection of Miss Nevadas, and we are all friends, and that's really cool to see.
That is cool.
That, you know, you're able to stay close with the title holders throughout the years, and you stay involved in the organization, as well as meet women from other states, and now you have this cool network of women that are around the country that are as ambitious as you are. But I'm also friends with the girls that I competed against. My first runner-up, I'm going to her wedding next month in Monterey, California. Super excited about it. And that moment of competing and being the finalist on stage together really kind of solidified our friendship. We had known each other previously a little bit, and we've been very close ever since. And it was through this mutual experience and kind of hardship and blood, sweat, and tears going into this, just to have this experience together was really incredible.
That's
it's a nice
really cool.
Social bonding.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of like when you're on a reality show or something, like, even though you're competing against each other, you end up becoming friends and that kind of stuff.
Well, because really cool. There's a finite amount of people that have had that kind of experience with you, right?
Very true.
And I think it's the same thing with traveling. When you're in an environment that not many people are exposed to, you're going to gravitate towards those who have experienced similar things or can relate to you. And maybe, you know, not all the time, but that's how you formulate bonds.
And I've found that even when you're, like, if you meet someone when you're traveling or whatever, you might not even have that tight of a bond with them initially, but if you connect with them on Facebook or whatever, and then you reconnect later, it's like your bond is like 10 times stronger because you already feel like you can relate with so many other things. Yeah. And it's like a total, I don't know, your brain just connects them with that place you were in, and chances are, if you were on an awesome adventure, you're connecting their memories with your awesome memories too.
Sure.
So you're like already connecting them with awesome stuff.
Yeah, well, you know, and you've been through this struggle together. Like, once you've been through this experience and this hardship and overcome that together, like, your friendship is solid. You can do anything. At that point, it's just rolling a ball down a hill, you know?
Yeah.
You've already got to the peak. You're ready to go.
Yeah, that's really cool. So what did you do with your year? What did you do with the crown and the sash?
I exhausted myself. I got that thing so ratty and gross. It was my goal that I was not going to have a pristine sash by the time I finished the year. Because I'd heard a lot of stories of girls regretting not immediately hopping on the ball and going after what it was that they wanted to do. And that really struck me because I had spent so much time being stuck in my own head about what had happened to me with this burn accident. And it's like, I'm not wasting any of this time. I have a year. And that's the good and the bad thing of being a title holder. You only have a year. So you have to make the most of it. And you know, with that deadline looming, which we don't often get those opportunities in life to know, okay, this is the amount of time that I have to be most effective at this, and then I have to move on. So with kind of that nod from the universe of you have 365 days, now what? It was really cool to be able to then make a list and be like, all right, what are we doing? And my platform in particular was the Burn Foundation, and I work with the Burn Institute, which funds Camp Beyond the Scars, a summer camp for children that are burn survivors out of California. They send children from 4 different states there every summer. And while the camp itself is run by firefighters and burn unit nurses, and it's only children that have survived burn injuries and accidents, all of the activities are normal. You know, they have a full staff available in case any child needs special treatment. They do counseling. But the crazy thing about going to that camp and seeing these children, you know, for their whole lives, they have people pointing at them and asking them, what's wrong with you? And what's wrong with that child? And why do they look funny? And they just get to be kids. So, you know, when I was being prepped of going in and, okay, you're going to give a speech and you're going to hang out with them and we just need you to be aware, you know, some of the kids are going to, you know, not look normal and we can't have you breaking down and we can't have them totally fine. We got it. I'm walking in and they just wanted to play laser tag. Like, they don't want to talk about what happened to them. They just want to be kids, you know, because they haven't been allowed to do that their whole lives. And it was so...
It's like they're an attraction everywhere they go.
Yeah.
Like, people always want to ask them something like, oh, you know, blah, blah, blah.
You know, kids are mean, you know, and they're very blunt. And it was really great to see this group of children just be able to enjoy the fun things that come with being a child. So the Burn Foundation was a big part of my year, working with the firefighters of Southern Nevada.
Is that, I'm just curious, are like chemical burns included in that too?
Yeah, all burns.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's something
Heat,
that like
water,
that had never really like crossed my mind very often, but I've heard a lot of recently of people getting like attacked with acid and all this crazy stuff.
Yeah. So. The most common burn actually that happens is hot water. People like getting into a bath or something. Whoa. And the water being too hot and then them not realizing it and then being burned on a majority of their body.
Whoa.
Or boiling water and having boiling water fall. Yeah, that's the most common way that people get burned, is just from hot water.
Wow.
Yeah.
I could imagine the boiling water thing, but the bath thing just seems like kind of crazy.
And I ended up meeting a woman. We shot a magazine spread shortly after I was crowned, and that was her story, was that she's a makeup artist, but she had taken a bath and ended up burning her entire back of her body by getting into it was insane. But so going back to, you know, the year, so we had the Burn Foundation, we had the platform, obviously doing a lot of events with Boys and Girls Club, United Way. You get invited to a lot of charity events. You're doing a lot of grand openings, working with nonprofits, partnering with the mayor on events, which is really cool. So then, right after nationals, because we all have to go compete for the national title, I was awarded, a local Las Vegas Weekly named me the best blogger of the year, which was really awesome to have that accolade. And then my travel editor from USA Today started following me on Twitter. And I must have spent a good week trying to compose what I would write to her in a direct message and be like, oh my gosh, okay, like, hey, no, that's too informal. Like, hello, no, that's too weird. Like, I only have 160 characters. How do I connect with this woman? And she ended up reaching out first and I was like, hey, you know, I saw your blog and I like what you do, and we'd be interested in having you come on board. Let's talk about maybe getting you to do some trial pieces. And so I get on the phone with the president of the company and with her as the editor, and it was an insane moment. And we agreed to do these 6 pieces, or over 6 videos, 6 editorial pieces over the course of 6 weeks to see what would happen. And that began my career with USA Today, writing for them for 3 years. And shortly after we started doing these trial pieces and putting together these videos of entertainment, nightlife, and what was going on in Vegas and tourist attractions, iHeartRadio Music Festival was rolling through Vegas, and they asked me to cover the red carpet. And I had never done red carpet interviews before, and I said, sure, that's totally fine. Got it handled, no problem. And my first interview out the gate was Ryan Seacrest.
That's so crazy.
Which, you know, no pressure.
No pressure at all.
The king,
I feel like Ryan would be a really nice guy, though.
He is.
And he's a host himself, so he kind of gets it.
Right. Well, and that was, I think, the most intimidating part about that, was that he is the host of all hosts. And he hosts everything and all the mediums and does all of the things. And what I learned from that interview, if it wasn't on tape, I couldn't have told you what I said to him, but regardless of the questions I asked, I remember how he made me feel in that interview and how much ease there was around the interview. And that was the first note that I took of, okay, moving forward, it really doesn't matter what I ask, but it needs to make sure, I need to make sure this is comfortable for the person that I'm talking with, and that comes across in the video. And so with that being the goal, as well as with the guidance of USA Today and how they structure things, I really lucked out, I think, with that 1-2 punch, because it kind of put me into this really nice rhythm of being able to keep moving forward and interview and continue to get better and grow and solidify some relationships this way that otherwise I probably wouldn't have figured out how to do. So that became, working with USA Today then became a large part of my year as Miss Nevada, because then I would go to events to cover it as well as go as Miss Nevada. And USA Today loved that. And of course, the Miss Nevada organization loved that USA Today was giving me so much coverage. And I would wear my sash and crown to red carpets. So, we were late one day to a carpet. Bad traffic accident, couldn't tell you what happened. Rushing in, and we hear like Hanson had just left, and I go running in my heels down the carpet while my camera guy is getting set up, and I hear this publicist being like, "Hey, Miss Nevada, if USA Today would like to talk with you." And they're like, "Miss Nevada," and they turn around. I literally run into them, and I'm just like, "Hi, yeah, that's me. Like, can I have you come back? I know it's really awkward. You just left. You did the whole thing, and I wasn't there, and I'm really sorry." And they're like, "Yeah, Miss Nevada, sure, let's come do this thing." And you'd be surprised how often I don't say I got away with things, but I was able to attract more celebrities to want to talk with me because there was a curiosity of like, well, what are you doing here?
Yeah, you weren't just like a normal other reporter on the red carpet. Huh.
And
that's
that,
interesting.
It kind of became my shtick of like, okay, now I need to wear evening gowns everywhere I go, because that's the manner in which I've been initially introduced to people, and it's worked out well. So that became a big part of my year, as well as doing a lot of speaking engagements. I ended up modeling in LA Fashion Week for a couple of designers, which was a really cool win to have that happen, especially, during a time a year prior where I've been lying on my bathroom floor being like, I am Frankenstein. And then to be on, modeling haute couture on this runway, it's 88-foot runway. It's a cool moment and a milestone to reach in your life of like, you can really get anywhere in a year if you give yourself the time and allow the space to be open of what could potentially happen.
That's really incredible. That's so true though, because I mean, like you said it before, it's like you have 365 days, you got to go full steam ahead and take advantage of it.
Yeah.
But people don't look at their life that way. They're like, I've got the rest of my life ahead.
Right.
But it's like, you do have these next 365 days, and you don't know what's going to happen to you. You could get hit by a car. You could get burned. You could have a firework fly down your shirt and get burned. Like,
totally.
All kinds of crazy stuff. And, people it's always kind of like an interesting concept to think about, like, well, what if you found out you had cancer and you knew you were going to die in a year? What would you do? Or all this kind of stuff. And it's like, it's cliche, but people say, like, you should live every day like it's going to be your last, or live every day like, your time is short, or whatever you want to say. And that's really cool that you were able to have that awesome transformation. What was it? You said your friend was a former Miss Nevada? Yeah. Was she the one that inspired you to like try to go do that? Because I know you said you were in this state where you hated yourself and all this. So what was the opposite of what you could do? Was she the one that kind of inspired you to do it? Or?
So she had tried to push me to do pageants when I first met her, I think. So we'd worked these 2 movie sets back to back, one day after another, like full 18-hour days. We were totally out of our minds by the time we left the second set. It was crazy. And just from sleep deprivation alone. But at one point, because there's a lot of hurry up and wait and sitting around, and we're sitting at a table and talking back and forth, and she asked me, have you ever thought about doing pageants? And I think I laughed at her at the time, and I'm like, that's funny, or no, I'm smart, or I said something sarcastic and really just precocious looking back on it. But as I got to know her and hear her story and why she had competed and how pageants had enriched her life, and just grew to love her as a person and thought she was just amazing and so intelligent and smart and witty, and she'd had a chance to do all these incredible things, it started to shift the perspective. And then through her, I started meeting other formers. And these other inspiring, ambitious, incredible women who had interests in politics and journalism and anchoring and were really pushing the limits of taking this title to help them get further in their careers. And that also just kind of threw me for a jolt. So yes, I would say she was absolutely instrumental, and that even being part of the brainstorm of how could I do this, aside from just like wearing a bikini in front of my friends and like trying to feel okay with it, like what's going to be the extreme here. And she was the one that actually sent me the pageant information and just like slipped it in my inbox and my email and was like, hey, just FYI, entries coming up. And so that was the moment. So I really owe it all to her.
That's so cool though. And obviously that was such an awesome thing that you did that.
Yeah.
Would you say that was the most pivotal point, like in your, like launching what you're currently doing right now?
In my career? It's hard to say because it was a series of fortunate events and, you know, timing that led me to that point. Mm-hmm. I think that me being Miss Nevada definitely had some attraction for USA Today. I would learn much later that I had initially been referred to my editor by some blogging friends of mine who at the time when they referred me had never met me, but they'd read my stuff, and we'd had this online relationship of promoting each other's articles back and forth. And I'm sure, as you know, maybe in the podcast community, it's probably similar where you listen to people's stuff and, you know, just continue to support each other and what you're doing in your own lanes. I don't know if that's your...
Oh, definitely true. Yeah. And you mentioned something earlier that was interesting about how a lot of times on stage people will kind of like stammer, or, you know, they will be awkward or whatever, or they won't know how to answer the question. You have to be good at that. And that's one thing that has been kind of eye-opening to me with some podcasts. Like you said, Ryan Seacrest, he's so good because he can make you feel like, you know, you're super comfortable talking with him or whatever. And I've seen tons of awkward interviews on red carpets, not even necessarily a red carpet like a big fancy thing, but just awkward interviews in general.
Sure.
Where people are just bad hosts, or they're bad at talking, or they make the guest feel weird.
Right.
And now opening up into this podcast space, especially in the year 2017, podcasts are kind of the hot new in thing to do for a lot of people. So a lot of people are trying to jump into this, and this is something that I've been considering doing for a while, and I just hadn't ever made the jump.
Okay.
And I listen to a lot of podcasts, but I don't listen to a lot of like new podcasts. I listen to a lot of established podcasts that are like more highly produced. So now that I've kind of dipped my feet into this world, I just started releasing stuff, and people started giving me feedback like, yo, this is really good. Like, I really enjoy listening to your podcast. And I was just like, I don't know, this is just what I know.
Right.
Because I've started listening to other people's podcasts, and some other really up and coming podcasts are awesome. Like my friend Matt B. Davis that I was talking about, that we did a podcast recently. He has this new podcast called the Atlanta Podcast.
Cool.
Where he just talks to like cool people in Atlanta and other awesome people. Like we just had Dragon Con here this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
So you get to talk to like some crazy people down there.
Sweet.
That podcast is awesome. And I've also been introduced to some other podcasts that are terrible. And I'm just like, geez. Now I understand why people are like really excited to listen to mine, because I'm like, I'm sorry, but like some of these podcasts are just not very good. And I hate to say that, but it's just kind of true. And like there's definitely that awkwardness of like, hey, will you promote my podcast? I'll promote yours. And there's sometimes where it's kind of like, I don't really want to promote your podcast because I don't really like it that much. But then there's other people that I've been introduced to that I'm like so super glad that I got introduced to their podcast, because they're an inspiration to me, and I'm like, oh, that's the coolest idea. Why haven't I thought of that or whatever? So there's definitely that back and forth and all kinds of Facebook groups and all kinds of crazy
I made it a rule of thumb that if anybody cold emailed me asking me to promote anything of theirs, it wasn't going to happen. Like, you know, in this particular travel blogging couple that had sent the referral for me, which I'm so grateful, and I owe them everything, and firstborn child, whatever they want, really. it's theirs. You Tani, you guys have it. But you know, I was such a fan of their writing and their stuff and their love story and how they met, and I was really just kind of geeked out on their content. And I think I had reached out to them and just said, you know, hey, I'm just a really big fan and I love what you do and whatever, and they responded back. But those kind of connections where you contact someone as a fan, or like, I like what you do, I like reading your stuff, being someone that's also doing this or trying to make this happen, I just wanted to send you a shout out. That's how you build, in my mind, and looking at when people have reached out to me with those are still the relationships that years down the road I still had. It's the emails of, hey, I do this thing and you should promote me, that I don't hear from that person again, because in theory, most of the time, they're not even looking at me as what I do, but more of like, okay, I just need someone else to give me a shout out, and another SEO link, and another place to promote my stuff. And I would love to do a course one day on like how to approach somebody cold emailing, or how to pitch somebody, even like as a journalist and as a blogger, on both sides, where it's like, here's a list of things not to do and here's a list of things to do. I mean, you and I met on a networking app for people in media careers, and I cannot tell you the number of introductions I've gotten that way that have been so weird, and I'm sure you've experienced it as well.
This is the one I hate. Hey, you should have me on your podcast. I'm just like, right. And like, sometimes it's not that it would even be a bad thing, but it's just so, that's the first thing, really.
Right.
Like, hey, you should have. And another thing that is a big pet peeve of mine, when people say, hey, I know it's really hard to find good guests, so I would gladly be on your podcast. I've gotten that a couple times.
I'm insulting.
I'm like, what do you mean it's hard to find good guests? I'm like, I'm friends with a lot of cool people, I will have you know, and I have not had a problem finding cool guests. No, but I've definitely had a lot of weird, cold things like that, where it's just like, hey, shout me out, hey, put me on. And one of my things that I haven't wavered on with the podcast is doing face-to-face stuff, because a lot of people do Skype on their podcast, or they'll do phone podcasts, which is fine. There's a lot of good ones. But like, for me personally, I'm selfishly, I get more out of it when it's a face-to-face thing.
Absolutely.
And you, as a listener, you can tell when it's face-to-face versus a Skype thing, especially if we did the podcast over Skype. It would just be a little more awkward. We hadn't met before. There's just like, you can just tell it in the air. There's just like a flavor to it that's just not right.
Sure.
And that's just something that I don't want to like sacrifice as far. So like, a lot of cool people have reached out to me like, yo, I like what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you live in like Seattle, so like maybe in the future, but like not right now, you know?
Let me know when you're in the area.
Exactly. But for people that are listening, like what would be the best way? Obviously you said like reaching out as a fan is super helpful, but like what would be a great way of like getting someone's...
So I'm a big proponent of, if you're going to ask me for my time, whether it's to help you, guide you, mentor you, try to point you in the right direction, give you a reference, give you a contact, maybe we have mutual friends and you want me to introduce you to so-and-so, I don't know. Depending upon what you're asking can really depend too, but know your audience. So if you're reaching out to me asking me to review some tech product, like, you're not going to get a response from me, because I don't write about tech, right? Like, I'm in entertainment, music, nightlife. Like, when I was with USA Today, I get pitched the most random things. And I get it. If you don't have any other contact, you're just going to throw everything at them and let them, be the ones to reject it. Maybe they're working on some sort of weird spin-off story that you don't know about. But, respect my time and like, okay, these are the things that this person focuses on. So I'm going to reach out to them about this in particular, know their background, know what they've done, read some of their writing, do your homework. It's just like when you're doing an interview, right? Like, nothing embarrasses anybody more than not knowing who the person is or what they're about before you go and you open your mouth on either side, right? It's whether it's a live red carpet interview or if it's a podcast or if it's an email, it can get really weird if you don't know what I've done and you think that I'm going to let you do a guest post about this when my blog has nothing to do with that, or I can't help you with that. Or, ask a very specific question like, hey, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I've done. I see that you do this. I really like how you made this happen. I just have a quick question for you, because you seem to be very proficient at this and prolific at it. How do I maximize this? Like, make it short and make it something that I can answer in 2 to 3 sentences and to help help you out and establish a connection versus me having to pour a ton of time into it. And I mean, to me, that would be an easy way to open a door. And that also shows me, like, you've done your homework, you know who you're talking to, you know that my time is valuable, you don't want to waste it. And you know, there's also something you can get out of this very quickly that doesn't require me to put in a ton of effort. And if maybe I'm in a giving mood, or I like your story, or I like what you're working on, maybe I'll go check it out. Maybe then I will retweet you. Who knows at that point what can spawn from just being very specific about what it is. If it's just like, I get all the time, like, I want to be a model. I'm like, cool, Google, how do you become a model? Or like, here's my list of, and you almost like start keeping drafts of like, okay, here are the 3 things that I recommend to people if they're looking to be a model. Here are the 3 things I recommend to people who want to be, a journalist, or the 3 things I recommend to people that want to be a host. And, Tim Ferriss is just famous at putting those in blog posts and being like, refer to this and drive up. And it's an amazing concept because you don't have time to answer everybody, and you don't have time to follow up. And as much as you would even want to guide all of these people, and that's not the kind of question that you ask someone of I'm in no way comparing myself to Tim Ferriss, but somebody of that level, like, hey, I want to get into podcasting. How do I start? And the great news is that he's created a list of resources for people that are interested in doing that. They can look it up. So, do some of your own homework first, because if you're going in, it almost feels like you don't really want to do it. Like, I'm sure you've seen that.
Oh, for sure.
A lot. Or something.
I agree. And like, one thing that interestingly enough, I had my friend Owen on the podcast. One of the things he said he does when he meditates is he has this council of people in front of him that are like his most important people that he would want to ask questions to. So if he's like dealing with something, kind of like what would Jesus do kind of thing, he literally like goes down the line and asks each one of them in his head, what would, if I could ask them, what do I think they would tell me?
Right.
And like Tim Ferriss is one of his people, Gary Vaynerchuk, all these different people. And even Jesus was one of his people, because he was like,
it's a good counsel.
Man. He had a great counsel. I was like, I'm going to steal some of your people on the council. No, but it was really interesting because it's totally true. A lot of these people that are reaching out to you are almost like asking for permission to do the thing that they already like want to do. And it's like, okay, they're reaching out to you not because they really want to know, not because they're actually that, they don't know how to become a model. There's so many resources out there like on how to start. Right. But it's more, I think, like they don't believe in themselves, or they're, they want permission to do this thing or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of people want validation, and they want to feel like it's okay to go after this. And maybe they're also on the flip side hoping that you'll make it easier on them and be like, okay, well, here's my list of contacts and I'll just get you the interview. But I think with anything, you've got to put a little bit of legwork in, even before you can ask for any kind of favors. Like, you have to put in the work, and you have to show that you've earned it.
Exactly.
At the end of the day, and and that's what kind of culls the herd, are the people that just go for it, and the ones that don't. And you don't know what you don't know, but you'll never know anything if you don't start. So you've got to just begin.
That is very true. I put out a video on YouTube a long time ago, not super long time ago, but it was entitled "Why I Dropped Out of College."
Okay.
And so that video got in a lot of people's related videos on sidebars of YouTube, and it gained a lot of support. And at the time, I was in a business where I was trying to generate leads. So I was generating a ton of leads from all these kids that were like, unhappy with where they were, or like not, they were still in school and they were like not enjoying it, or whatever the case might be. And I had like this forum on my website where people would fill out and talk to me, and so many of them were just like, I'm like, dude, it sounds like you've already figured it out. You're just asking me for permission to do this thing. Like, just do it. Like, if that's what you really want to do it. If you don't have a plan, you should probably stay in college, or like make your parents happy, or do whatever you need to do. But if you have another idea, or you have this thing that's burning inside of you, you're going to kick yourself unless you do it. So just freaking do it. Right. And so a lot of the times I think it is people just kind of like asking for the permission, and it's like, you already know the answer. You don't really need to ask me. You're just like being an attention whore or something. I don't know.
Well, there comes this unique point in life where we become fully responsible for the pursuit of our education, the pursuit of our dreams, And I don't think that's ever fully explained to us when we're growing up, that like, hey, you want to be president, you want to be an astronaut, you want to be, Miss USA, you're going to have to work for it. Like, you can be anything that you want to be. You just have to want to do it. Like, we leave off those last couple of words, and I think that those are the most important ones to be saying to young children, because we can do anything, but we've got to put the work in, and we've got to be willing to take the time to get there. And if we're not, like, nothing's going to be handed to us, ever. It doesn't work that way.
For sure. We are coming up on our time limit. But I just wanted to say, I know, right? I'm having fun.
This is awesome.
I did want to ask you, so like right now you're kind of doing all kinds of stuff, but you're obviously super interested in travel, and this like, your blog is literally called The Grad Nomad, right?
The Nomad Grad.
My bad.
Yes.
That rhymed.
That
Unintentional.
totally rhymes.
And what is your ideal like future? Do you want to continue to be like a nomad, and like you were saying, your friend that asked you the question, like, well, why don't you just do this? Like, what are your aspirations as far as that?
I think that my life is going to be very fluid, and I'm going to have multiple stages where I'm able to experience different things, which is really, it's a different way of looking at your lifespan and being like, well, I'm going to...
Tim Ferriss style.
Exactly. I'm a big fan. I just finished Tools of Titans. It took me 3 months, but I finished it, and it's an encyclopedia of a book that you could throw at somebody and probably injure them with, because it's so heavy and 600 pages.
I haven't tried to read it yet, but I've seen it. It's fat.
But I mean, going back to, like, I don't anticipate doing anything forever, and I hope that I have the joy of continuing to do the things that I want to do for the rest of my life, as long as I feel the need to do them. So with that in mind, right now, I'm still very heavily pursuing on-camera work and hosting. I think my ideal situation would be to wind up in an Ellen, an Oprah, or a Ryan Seacrest like role. And I know it's very ambitious, and these are the pinnacle of people that know. Larry King, that can interview, he did 60,000 interviews in his career and counting. These people that have the ability to relate to others and inspire others through just talking to people. Mm-hmm. Really, essentially, that's what it boils down to. But there's something about how they do it that is so it's magnetic in a way. Mm-hmm. And beautiful and inspiring. So I would love to eventually have a career that emulates some of those greats. And yes, I think that travel will always be a part of my life. I'm going to Thailand in November, which we talked about in the elevator. Very excited about that. I think it's important to constantly experience new things and put yourself outside your comfort zone, if only to remind yourself that the microcosm and the drama that we're dealing with on the daily is not real life, and that there are so many people out there. I mean, and we are just getting a small dose of it right now with Hurricane Harvey. There are people that live in devastation, that don't have access to clean water their whole lives. And we as a country are so lucky and so blessed to have all the resources and the ability to be like, well, what do you want to be when you grow up, Andrew? Like, you want to sit on a couch and do a podcast? Cool. And most people are fighting just for basic human rights. And we're just so lucky to be in the time and space that we are, and be born where we are, where we can even make these decisions. So I hope that not only to continue to travel, but to continue to grow my community, as well as help other communities around the globe as well. So looking in the future, I intend and very much look forward to finding more ways to give back to some of these cultures that have influenced my life and where I am right now. That's awesome. I feel like you were very experienced in answering questions like that as Miss Nevada as well. I'm like, damn, that was a good answer. 5 out of 5. There 10 out of 10. Ready to go. Just put the crown on my head. She's ready. I've gotten a couple questions that have stumped me. I can't think of any at the moment. That's funny. Man, let me see if I can. I feel like anything racial is always like, makes you like grit your teeth for a second before you like open up your stupid mouth and say something that you regret saying. Oh, like with the racial profiling question? Or well, just not even the racial profiling question, but if people ask you questions about
well, what do you think about blah, 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 and it involves like a racial thing,
Oh.
I feel like a lot of people like tense up because they're afraid to say something offensive or whatever.
Yeah, it's hard because you don't know how passionately the person who's asking the question feels about it, what they're expecting you to say, whether or not they really want to have a dialogue about it. And I think often when questions like that are asked, it's not because a conversation is wanted to be had to expand people's minds. It's almost like a challenge. I'm just like, well, tell me what you think, and then I'll tell you if you're, worth something in my book, or if we're on the same page, or if I'm going to fight you. And that's kind of the sad thing that I see happening right now, even on social media, is that there's a lot of hyperbolic statements, overarching statements that are being said, and like, well, these people are this way, and these people are that way, and the reality is, if we were all to sit around a table and talk about Game of Thrones or Amazing Race or something, it's like, people are people, and there has to be a willingness to, like, well, why do you believe that? And tell me more about that, and what brought you to these conclusions, and help me understand. And I think if we're able to come to the table with anything and have a dialogue and present it in a non-threatening way, regardless of the topic, we're going to end up walking away much more informed. But people, it seems that we're not in a state where that's the default. And I'd like to get it to a place. I try to do that when I travel, honestly.
I was going to say, spoken like a true traveler. Because seriously, that's what happens. You end up winding up around a bunch of people that you think are a certain way, and then you walk away thinking a totally different idea.
Absolutely.
And it happens time and time again.
Well, and we are all, you go anywhere in the world, like, we all experience sadness, we all experience happiness, we all have loved ones, we all have dreams, we all have things that make us afraid and we're scared of, and that we never want to lose, and we're embarrassed by. Like, we have all these basic human emotions, and we have the ability to connect with each other regardless of where we are and what our background is. And I cannot tell you the number of times, because honestly, when I first started traveling, I was a total wimp, and I didn't know what to. I would cry a lot. Like, there's a lot of tears that would happen, and for some reason, something would happen, and I'd be like, okay, I got to process this, and I'd end up in a cab or something, and the taxi cab driver would just be so concerned about me and be like, are you okay? Like, can we pull over? Like, in the middle of this third world country, being so concerned about my well-being and what's happening. And it's just amazing. Or you're in a random place lost, and you're just looking around like a lost puppy, and a nice woman will approach you and offer to help you. And it's amazing how people have this call to help others that are in distress. And we don't often see that because we're so lost in our own world, and like, well, everything sucks, and here's what I'm going through, and my Facebook page only got this many likes, and this is awful, and like, we're so stuck in, well, my contestant didn't win American Idol, and the news is saying this. And the reality is like, every day, every opportunity, if we put the screens down, we have the chance to really connect with other people and get to know them, and maybe make a difference as to how they view the other side, whatever that is, from themselves.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself. That's like really one of the main missions of this podcast too. Like, I want to have very diverse guests, and hopefully by people listening to this, they can get to know inside the brains of all different types of people, because you tend to look at somebody and just be like, oh, that's just a weird old hippie guy, or that's just a dirty old homeless guy, or whatever, and you think these things. But it's like, if you really get to sit down, come to the table, we can talk it out, we can talk about all different kinds of stuff, hear your story, we can all learn to coexist and learn to know each other better. And world peace. I feel like that's a good place to wrap things up. Obviously, earlier you said people can reach out to you if they have questions or anything. Also, is there anything else you wanted to say?
Yeah, so please follow me. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Hilary, that's with one L, HILARY _ Billings, BILLINGS, just like Billings, Montana. And that's good for, again, Facebook, Twitter, Insta. I'm putting out series of Facebook videos, so feel free to check out those monovlogs. They're super fun. I'll be having some articles coming up in Modern Luxury, so I'll be sure to post those and share them with some really incredible celebrity interviews I'm very proud of. I can't say anything about them yet, but excited to have those hit the ground and running. And feel free, if you want to send me an email, if you have any additional questions that require long format, you can reach me at missnevadaus@gmail. That's MISSNVUS@gmail. And I'll get back to you.
There we go.
As long as you follow the protocol that was placed forth in this podcast.
Well, hopefully they've made it this far.
Yeah.
They will do that. Hopefully they know better.
Looking forward to talking with all of you. I love connecting with people via social media in particular. It's the easiest way to keep up with people.
There we go. Yeah. That's awesome.
Thanks for having me on.
Cool. Any last words, anything?
No, I think it was a great job, man. It's awesome.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
How awesome is Hilary? Like, she is so cool, right? I knew you guys would like her. Her stories are, like, insane. Like, I was so captivated when she was telling me in person. Like, I was there in this room with her, and I was captivated. I was like, I remember at one point, I was just like, this is crazy. I did not expect any of this. But seriously, really great stuff. Hilary is super active on all of her social media channels, so make sure you follow her there on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I'll have all the links to that in the show notes that nobody reads, as Matt B. Davis likes to say. But of course, you can find them by searching her name or by adding her at Hilary_Billings. That's Hilary with one L. And of course, I'm sure she's going to be posting all kinds of awesome stuff that she couldn't talk about on this podcast in the near future. So stay tuned for all kinds of great content. And also make sure you follow her blog, The Nomad Grad, that is in its resurgence. Also, I am going to be at Imagine Music Festival at the Atlanta Motor Speedway this weekend with Lindsay Carino from episode 20, Dr. Dre from episode 7, Connor Peterson from episode 13 is going to be there, and Nicole Barton from episode 39 is actually going to be performing there as her deep dubstep alter ego DJ name Zen Selecta. So basically what I'm trying to tell you is that if you're not there, you're missing out. But if you're going to be there, hopefully I get to see all of your lovely faces. I'm going to be camping, so no Wi-Fi or work for me. I'm cramming it all in these upcoming days. I'm going to be having fun with my friends and taking some time off, but that means that after this weekend, I'm getting right back to it, launching episode 46 with the man Ryan McGinn. Ryan is the founder of Team Handsome Guy. He's a huge YouTube and Instagram personality. He also runs a Facebook group with over 7,000 members, and he's actually the reason why I have started upgrading my Instagram story game so hard. If you've been following me, my Instagram stories have gotten quite interesting, very different than what I'm used to. But Ryan taught me really how he makes such epic Instagram stories, and I've kind of just been trying to copy him because his Instagram stories are amazing. But we caught up in his hometown of St. Petersburg, Florida, and that was right after Hurricane Irma, so it was quite interesting. But we talked about all kinds of awesome stuff, like how he became an icon in the men's style realm, how to promote yourself and stand out from everybody else, especially online, and all kinds of other fun stuff. Like I said, that episode will be launching in a few days once I'm back from raving, with all my homies. So stay tuned for that. That should be a really good one. If you want to support the podcast, and chances are you do, because you're a really cool person and you've made it this far and you're listening to the sound of my voice right now, you probably enjoyed the episode you just listened to, right? You probably know someone else who would probably enjoy listening to this too, right? So be a good person. Share this podcast with somebody you think would enjoy it. You know, next time you're talking about your favorite podcast, I would really appreciate if you drop the Andrew Dice podcast in there. I'm not asking that I have to be your favorite, just asking for a name drop, you know. Hey, doesn't hurt. And seriously, I really appreciate all you guys that are already doing that. I know tons of people are sharing and telling their friends all about what I'm trying to do here. So I really, really appreciate you guys. The other way that you can support this podcast in a more tactile way is through the iTunes store, the Apple Podcast app. Basically, that is the number one place where people discover podcasts and where podcasts get promoted. So the more 5-star ratings and reviews that you write on my podcast, the higher my rankings will go. Obviously, views and downloads are a big part of that as well, but having more reviews and ratings is really, really helpful. So it would really mean a lot to me if you could go in there, take a couple minutes. I mean, literally it takes like 1 minute to go in there, rate it 5 stars, and then also make a little comment just saying what you like, what you don't like, maybe some corrective criticism. I don't care. I actually read all of that stuff that's in the in those reviews. I check it to see if anyone has actually gone in and left me a review. So if you're trying to leave me some feedback, that would be a great place to do that because I will definitely see it. But if you want to follow me on all my social media platforms, you can do that by going to my website, andrewdeitsch.com. That's Andrew, DEITSCH.com. And you can find links to all of my social media handles and accounts. That's all I got. Thank you guys so much for listening. You guys are the bomb. If you're listening to the sound of my voice right now, you have no idea how cool that is. Like, it's absolutely insane how many people actually want to hear what my friends and I have to say. So thank you guys so much, and I will see you next week, episode 46. Bye, everybody.